Finally, I think Trump is getting the message that Putin is disrespecting him. And I think that's one thing that Trump reacts very poorly to, is being disrespected or being played for a patsy. But I think it does show that there is kind of this tension among the positions that Trump advocates. There's kind of this internal incoherence because on the one hand, he often talks about how he wants to end wars, but at the same time, he's very muscular and hawkish, talking about, how strongly he's going to hit anybody who messes with the United States. And so I think what you're seeing now is that the hawkish part of his persona is right now is kind of in the driver's seat.
When Putin talks nice, to use the president's word, one day, and then the following day bombs Kyiv or something of that sort, is that sequence intentional? Is he trying to embarrass Trump and in the lives of the world?
I'm not sure he's trying to necessarily embarrass Trump, but I think what he's showing is he doesn't care what Trump says, even though he listens to Trump, saying, I want the war to end. And he does, I'm sure on the phone, Putin doesn't say, you're full of it. I'm sure he says something soothing and agreeable to, so that he doesn't directly confront Trump. But with the fact that he is at the same time stepping up the drone strikes and the missile strikes, he's showing that fundamentally he doesn't really care what Trump is saying. And I think this has been obvious for quite a while. And you can say, why is it taking Trump 6 months to figure this out? I mean, I wish he had figured it out sooner, but better late than never. And finally, I think Trump is getting the message that Putin is disrespecting him. And I think that's one thing that Trump reacts very poorly to, is being disrespected or being played for a patsy, where he feels like the other guy is not taking him seriously. And I think that was, part of the impetus for Trump bombing the Iranian nuclear facilities, because he thought the Iranians were not negotiating seriously enough on the nuclear deal. And I think you're seeing kind of the same dynamic play out with Russia right now.
When he has the vice president, at least in the past, and when he has Tucker Carlson and others inveighing against him for potentially getting into an endless war, does he have a political risk in upping the ante against Ukraine in the way that you suggest that he should?
I don't think so. I think, something like the Jeffrey Epstein affair is probably a bigger political risk for Trump, because that's something that truly animates his base. Whereas when it comes to Ukraine, I think there is a split in the Republican Party. And I think there's still a lot of kind of conventional anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine Republicans out there, especially in the Senate, who strongly support, aid to Ukraine. And of course, there is also kind of the more isolationist MAGA base, the Tucker Carlsons and others, who are anti-Ukraine, pro-Russia. But, they don't really have any place to go. At the end of the day, they're part of this Trumpist party. And I don't think, Trump jumps around so much on issues. One day he's saying, release the Epstein file. The next day he's saying anybody who says release the Epstein file is a Democratic mole. People accept, people in this movement accept these kinds of bewildering flip-flops. And so I don't think that there's any real political risk for him supporting Ukraine. But I think it does show that there is kind of this tension among the positions that Trump advocates. There's kind of this internal incoherence because on the one hand, he often talks about how he wants to end wars. And if you listen to his second inaugural address in January, he talked about how he's going to measure his success by the wars that he ends and by the wars he does not enter. But so he sounds like kind of a peacenik, isolationist, dovish kind of guy. But at the same time, he's very muscular and hawkish, talking about, how strongly he's going to hit anybody who messes with the United States. And so I think what you're seeing now is that the hawkish part of his persona is right now is kind of in the driver's seat. And he's certainly acted very hawkishly on Iran. He's acting very hawkishly on Russia. And, I think it causes some grumbling among the more isolationist part of the MAGA base. But at the end of the day, I don't think that amounts to very much.
America at a Crossroads next week. It's going to be Paul Maslin and Mike Murray with Pat Morrison. What does Washington's chaos portend for the 2026 midterm? It's never too early to talk about those. Thanks again to everybody for listening and watching. See you next week.